Hi class, we're in Cuttle XYZ, which is the graphic design tool that we'll be using to make our illustrations. Though this tool is used a lot for laser cutting, we're going to use it for some other things as well. This tool allows you to create 2D elements in two different ways. You may already be familiar with the pen tool, but an easier way to create shapes is by dragging them from the menu. And before we get started with that, let's practice resizing this canvas. So if you are on a trackpad, you can squeeze together two fingers to zoom out, or move your fingers apart to zoom in. The other shortcut is I can press Control plus, and that will zoom in, and Control minus will zoom out. If I'm on a trackpad, I need to make sure that I have trackpad selected under the View menu, and I can use two fingers to pan up and down or side to side. Okay, I'm on a mouse, so I'm going to switch over to mouse, and I use my center button to pan my canvas. Okay, so let's zoom into this circle and rectangle. That's where we're going to start. I have two ways that I can create illustrations. One of them is dragging elements from the menu and then resizing it. So this is a little different than other tools. I'm not actually going to grab the circle to resize it. If I do that, it's going to have me modify or change the position of the whole thing. I have to hover over this transform box, and by default you just see the four corners of the transform box when you have the circle selected. But if I hover over the edge, it allows me to click on it and then resize that dimension of the shape. I can also, if I don't want to resize here, I can also type on that number and put in another dimension. And it'll keep the center, the origin, but then change the dimensions for you. But let's go ahead and resize it here and here. And I do want it the same dimensions, and it is 0.72 on both sides. Okay, so I will not be able to see this because it's so thin and it's the same color as the circle on the back. So I'm going to go over to this parameter window, and I'm going to change the color to red. You can click here to change it to red, but the bottom row has some of the basic colors. So I'm just going to click on the red down there. And then I'm going to uncheck hairline. Hairline unchecked defaults to 0.1, which is a tiny bit too thick, but I'm okay with you leaving it at that default. If I make it more like 0.06, then that is closer to the width of the original circle. Okay, so that was a basic shape. I didn't really have to do very much to it other than change its radius. This oval up here is going to require me to have the shapes at different dimensions. Okay, so it is much easier to do it by just dragging the edge of that transform box. And then now it's not the right rotation, so again I'm going to use this transform box and remove my cursor to any one of the corners until I see that curved arrow, and then I'm going to rotate. Okay, that was pretty close. I don't think I have to change anything, but if I wanted to, I can redimension it even as it's curved. It'll still maintain that original box before it was rotated. Okay, and then I can go and change the and undo hairline. And I'm okay with you leaving that as 0.1. 1, but I'm going to change mine to 0.06. Okay, so the other important thing about Cuttle, and we're going to go more in depth with the pen tool at a later point, but let's say we start off with our basic shape. This is a rectangle, and I'm going to try to make that rectangle. So I'm going to start by resizing using my transform box. And then it looks like I do need to tilt it a tiny bit, but it's not quite a rectangle. So my top edge looks aligned, but my other lines aren't quite the same. I still wanted to start with the rectangle because that gets me there faster. What I'm going to do, and this has to do with the fact that the rectangle is not a primitive shape, but I'm going to take this rectangle, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to convert to paths. And that converts this rectangle into its collection of anchors. An anchor is a point in a path. So here, that just highlighted this anchor at the bottom left. So now it doesn't behave like a rectangle anymore. It just behaves like a collection of paths. And then I can like fine tune all of my anchors. Okay, so I do like the fact that that rectangle is rounded. So I can do this before or after, but I liked aligning my lines first. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this modify and round my corners. This made it into an oval, which isn't exactly what I want, so I'm going to change the radius of those corners to 0.05. And that looks closer to that original rectangle. And now it's ready for me to change the stroke to red and change the hairline so I can see it just a little bit better. That does look really bulky, so I'm going to change that to 0.06. Okay, I can still see a little bit of that original rectangle, so I'm going to resize a tiny, tiny bit. Okay, notice that now, because it's not a rectangle anymore, the transform box doesn't align to that rectangle shape. It just aligns to the horizontal and vertical line. Okay, so that should be enough for you to complete these other shapes. To get to the triangle, you'll have to go to Browse All Shapes, and you'll see a lot more shapes available to you.